Yeah, yeah, again, YouTubers. Yeah, I know. I know, I'm sorry. I deleted most of my other videos, primarily because, I don't know, they were kind of crap. Oh, whatever. So, here's a new one. Yeah, I've been, just, kind of working and, hanging out on here. Just, just trying to get through life as it is. Anyway, hope all is well on your end, and I don't know, drop on by. Oh, by the way, there's also been a few events out here in the Bay Area. Yeah, luckily there's the governor out here in California stepped in like immediately, and he helped to avert a BART strike. Credit to Jerry. That's one thing. Of course, then there's the whole scandal going on with City College out here in San Francisco, all the way up in San Francisco. Oh, at least they did the rational thing by stripping the authority out of the elected board of trustees, which is like, finally. Because those guys, they're in elected positions. Guess what? They're going to be doing whatever they can to line their own pockets. I mean, they are technically politicians. So yeah, you have that. Yeah, apparently there was also a truck fire on Interstate 80 for the James Lick on the James Lick Freeway. Apparently, it was a rice truck that delivering rice to sushi restaurants and Japanese, Chinese, doesn't have to be sushi, but whatever. That matters. That truck was on fire. So, well, behold, the San Francisco Fire Department comes on. Only they realize they can't exactly put the fire out immediately. They have to first put the fire out in order to, keep the truck from exploding or keep it from reaching the gas tank. But then they realize, okay, since this thing is carrying a whole bunch of diesel fuel, we gotta unload all the diesel fuel. But you can't get to the site because you can't get to the wreckage because it's way too dang hot and you gotta cool down the wreckage. But you can't cool down the wreckage because inside there's a bunch of rice. Now, granted, you put water, mix it with rice, what happens? You cook it. So next thing they know, the back of the truck, they have to open it up and get all the rice out. But some of it, having gotten cooked, popped. So they had a whole mess to clean up. Which is pretty funny. But kind of serious at the same time. Because, I mean, it's a serious safety hazard. Because if you have something explode everywhere, it's a massive safety hazard. Because you don't know who's going to get hurt. But at the same time, it's pretty funny because the thing that was exploding is not something you would think of. Whatever. The good thing is, at least, it's not something flammable. Like gas. Or some other industrial chemical for that matter. That would be quite hard. To say the least. And I've been hearing a lot about the the back and forth about what's been going on with Al-Qaeda. I can't say much other than to say that they're weakened. I mean, very severely weakened. But they're not but they're still operational. Yeah, Bin Laden might be dead, but Al-Qaeda isn't. We're not out of the woods yet. As soon as we can get Ayman al-Zawahiri, who's now the new leader of Al-Qaeda, as soon as we get him, as soon as we get all the other top lieutenants that were around Bin Laden, just all the rest of them, we might stand a chance. And at least completely decimating Al-Qaeda. But you also have to get it also from the bottom, the bottom ranks. Those guys, the people at the bottom, all you gotta do is you just need to de-radicalize them. But in order to do that, you have to change their psychology. Go to, I don't know, RT or something, RT's channel, where former president, now current Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev has said in order to take out the root causes of terrorism, you have to change people's psychology. Because people don't become radicalized without having some kind of spark. I mean, it's that simple. A lot of these so-called, well, many of these guys are, I mean, they're not all guys. I mean, some of them are girls, but mostly they're men about my age, young men, about late teens, early 20s, even into their mid-20s and early 30s. That's a lot of them. I mean, there's a youth bulge in the Arab world, and a lot of times in the Islamic world, just in general. What's going on there is there's not a lot of employment opportunities and opportunities to better oneself in the neighborhood. No, it's not the fault of these young men. It really isn't. It's just economic conditions. Many of these very well-educated, young men and women, they go abroad. Better pay. That's great, and they can send money home, but it does do quite a bit of disservice to everybody there, because it makes the economy there like pretty fragile. The other half of the equation is the fact that a lot of the former, regimes that were in power, some of them, not all of them, but a good chunk of them are fairly corrupt. Now, you know how there's this saying of absolute power corrupts absolutely? Well, that's kind of what's going on. Now, but that's primarily what's going on, is the fact that there's either one, very, very, very horrible labor conditions. That's part of it. The other part of it is the fact that there aren't enough labor opportunities. And there's all these, and there's this massive, now, combine that with a very massive youth bulge, it's a recipe for trouble. Well, not in the trouble in the sense that, you're going to have a whole bunch of people who are, just going to be, like, trying to raise hell for everybody else. Nah. What I mean by trouble is, it's not the youth that are trouble, it's, you're going to have a whole bunch of trouble just in general, because of the fact that you know how the youth are when they have nothing to do. They, if left to their own devices, sometimes, I admit, we don't exactly think things out. That's probably the simplest way to put it. But yeah, That's pretty much as it is. Now as for the current goings on in the Mideast and this thing with Al-Qaeda. So that's Al-Qaeda's main root of fighters is very, very, very young individuals. Again, some of them are middle class, others aren't. Others are like really poor. But you have to understand, if they go through something like where they see like men, women, and children, the elderly, the young, kids, getting killed, how radicalized do you think they're going to get? Pretty radicalized. I can assure you of that. Which leads them to groups like Al-Qaeda. I mean, it doesn't happen to everybody, but in a lot of cases, that's the path down to that's down. I mean, again, that's not just the sole factor. There's other factors involved. The other problem is that a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these former regimes that were in power, not just being corrupt, not only were they just corrupt and such, they were, I'm going to tell you this much, they were pretty repressive, and I mean not just repressive, we saw, like the Arab Spring and such, the youth of those nations had, despite, besides just simply rebelling, they were, how do I put this? I know. By being left out of, by being left out of society, they were, left to their own devices. They were trying to do what they needed, what they could to make themselves heard. So there you go. One of the things I gotta tell you from being a young person myself is that if a lot of us, if we don't get something to help us out here, or if we feel like we're being ignored, sometimes we'll do things that, try to get somebody else's attention. It's just how it is. And the youth in particular, especially in those very repressive, regimes that were controlling a lot of the Arab states, they had no outlet. So if you don't give the youth an outlet or any kind of other opportunities, to let out some of their, pent up frustration, there you have it. I can't speak for all young people, but that's essentially my point. Sorry, I know I kind of rambled to get on there. Just try to formulate the right thoughts and such. Anyhow, so yeah, and I heard that President Obama, besides his birthday being, yesterday, and a very happy birthday to Mr. President, is that he's going to be, flying out west, to, try to tout his economic agenda, and which I think is a very smart thing to do, and also to try to tie it to immigration. Spot on. There's a reason for it. Immigrants, and this is largely very true, make up about 40% of all home purchases here in America. From what I've read, basically. it makes a lot of sense to legalize those who are not exactly here with any kind of documentation. I mean, there's no point in sending them back. I mean, because you know that it's not a feasible policy. Your best bet is just to, have them who came here, who didn't come here, with any kind of legal, documentation, have them pay a fine for just coming here illegally. I mean, that's the only crime they committed. Other than that, have them pay a fine. And just make sure that they can learn at least some form of English, and that should be the end of it. So those who have criminal records from a previous time, I'm not saying for political stuff, I'm saying for, for like your, for the usual, like murder, rape, abduction, that kind of thing. Well, again, that should be done on a case-by-case basis, depending on the nature of what happened and whether or not they've had time to, sort of atone for what happened. Whatever. But that's a topic for another video. Anyway, going back to my larger point, if you give them, legal documentation and such, you can help boost the housing market. I mean, one thing it'll do is it'll bump prices up, giving homes more equity, which in turn can, also, build back up the middle class and also try to build up the, yeah, and by doing that, you grow the economy, create jobs. Hey, by getting more people trying to, demanding to, buy homes, and there's more demand for homes, guess what? You can start construction on new homes, more jobs. See? And in depressed markets like those down in like Phoenix, Arizona, or in the Imperial or in the Inland Empire down in Southern California, there you have it. Anyway, I'm gonna cut off here. So yeah, subscribe, comment, do whatever. Oh wait, later.